Welcome, everybody, to the Eat, Pray, Faith podcast with Tracy Stroup, ND. That's me. I'm so glad that you're here to join me for this incredible podcast you're going to hear today. My very dear friend, Dr. Ivy Pruss, is here. She is a doctor of naturopathy. She is also carries a doctorate in clinical herbalism. She's two-time board certified. And actually, the way that I met Dr. Ivy was when I first saw her on Facebook with her incredible skincare line. So today, we're actually going to be talking about the value of the skin, how we enhance our skin and its communication to our microbiome, why it's so important, and why we have to be careful of what we put on our skin as men and women. So, Dr. Ivy, it's so great that you're here. I love that you're here. Can you give us a little bit of background of who you are and how you came to be into this beautiful, wonderful doctor of naturopathy?
Thank you so much, Tracy, for just having me on this amazing podcast. I'm so glad to be here with you. And believe it or not, although I have a doctorate in naturopathy and a clinical herbalism degree, I actually started out in this realm about 17 years ago. I have five children, so I'm a homeschool mom to five kids. And my second son, his name is Ephraim. He was born, and at about my 6 week postpartum checkup, he started developing these really, really weird things on his skin. We all have an umbrella term that we are very familiar with from the allopathic community, and they just kind of named it eczema. And he was so little, and my options were only topical steroids, immunosuppressants. And my husband and I at that point just didn't have peace with deciding to go that route. So I kind of panicked. The skincare line was born really out of desperation and panic. I was trying to go to the health food store and trying to figure out what are some good clean things I can put, on my son. And everybody was telling me, just slather him in Vaseline or slather him in Aquaphor. And before I knew what Aquaphor was, I'm like, this is basically Vaseline. I'm basically putting like melted plastic all over my son.
Right.
So even 17, 15 years ago, we didn't have as many clean skincare options, I think, that we're kind of flooded with now. So really, my learning and just the fuel to be, as close to the Proverbs 31 woman as I could get, taking care of my home, taking care of my family, my children, my husband, it really was born out of that. And through those years of going back to school online, learning how to formulate skincare, it just became this never-ending process of going through all these learning things and signing up for courses and learning about the immune system and about the skin and all this stuff. And it just was only natural that later on, my husband would tell me, you just need to make it official, finish getting your credentials in naturopathy and in clinical herbalism. And that way, when people come to you, you can help them. And so I wasn't a naturopath first, even though, kind of was I, because I was already learning about all these things. I just didn't have the title. So the skincare came first, and then I just topped it all off and finished it with the cherry on top with just the credentials and just made it official there.
Well, you blew it out of the water. Two degrees, two-time board certified. And, I've kind of watched you grow into this practice over the last couple of years. And you're brilliant. I watch your posts. I watch how you interact with your clients. So I think this is great because what we try to do here with the podcast is, people can come to you. Her company is called Epigenetic Health, which I think is great. Because it really is about the expression. When I worked with Dr. Judy a lot, she would always say, we're not our DNA, we're our chromosomes, we're the expression of those. And that's from communication and information. And so one of the things I think is really missed in our industry is that people wait to take care of their health of their skin until there's something wrong. But isn't that the thing with all of our industry? Like we don't put a
Mhm.
value on health until we're sick. But as women and even men, because the manscaping today, and
Mhm.
I know I have two boys, right? 14 and 10. Oh, they're all about the colognes and this and that. And I'm like, no, 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 they're terrible. So it's hard to, as a parent, navigate all the noise. So I specifically asked you to talk about this topic because I know you could talk about anything. You could talk about genes, you could talk about chronic disease, you could, I mean, anything, because you're an amazing naturopath. But I asked you to talk about this today because I don't think there's anyone more with more expertise on the topic than you that I've seen out there. And I think it's hugely neglected for practitioners in our field, and even more so neglected and confusing because people don't know what to look for or what to trust. Can you just start us off? Like, why should we care about our skin and what we put on it? And then just take us down this little rabbit trail of your brilliance, because I want people to hear this.
Thank you so much. You're way too kind. And ever since we found each other on Facebook, I think it's just been, a match made in heaven with the both of us because we're both very like-minded in a lot of things. But you're right. Nobody wants to talk about skin and the way that it's connected to your gut microbiome, its importance, and what it actually does for us. So the largest organ, so we're talking about the skin, right? It is the largest organ and the most important physical barrier, our outermost interface between our body and our environment. This is only second to our gut. So second to our gut, the only other place is your GI microbiome that's got as much as a plethora of all these microbes that basically make up who you are. So not many think about the skin when we talk about the immune system, but you should, because it's very, very important to it. We've got an unseen community of bacteria, of fungi, of little mites that literally coat your whole skin, and they're there to protect you. Okay, they communicate with your internal microbiome. So you have in about every square inch, you have about 40, and I want to say that's very reserved. That's a very reserved amount, but there's about 40 species or so in every square inch of skin that you have. And within that square inch of those 40 species, you have at least a million or more microbes. That is a lot of communication going on. They are absolutely beautiful. They communicate with each other and your DNA. They let you know that you have a really good community going on right now. They're not willing to accept any more freeloaders. Like when you walk outside and you live your life, you're amongst bacteria, fungi, mold, yeast, all kinds of things. Your skin and your microbiome on your skin communicate with your DNA, and they say, listen, we're going to accept like this many more little freeloaders. If they land on us, we'll determine whether they're friendly or foe, and we'll treat them accordingly. Now, your skin produces sebum and all this stuff, and that sebum is a lot of nutrients to actually sustain these microbes that you have on your skin. So when I see people slathering their hands with this hand sanitizer and all this stuff, I think to myself, well, if you do that enough, that community you have there, it's not going to keep populating. You just assault them enough times and they won't come back. So it's really just quite this beautiful, intricate whole little system. And I'm trying to really keep things kind of toned down because I don't want it, to get like way too technical, way too much. And I want, the listeners here to get as much information as they can.
Well,
So
fascinating that you said how many microbes are, 40 species per every cell, right? It's amazing. You could have left the mite part out, but other than that, it was great. So the hand sanitizers, let's just pause there because this is still big.
Mhm.
And I don't think people realize the damage. They think of these big bad things as germs coming at us, like they're out to get us. Viruses and bacteria aren't out to get us. They're just part of our environment we live in. So the skin is really, from what I'm hearing from you, is part of our immune system. And it's our innate immune system. Before we make an antibody against anything, God has already designed this armor, this shell that has warriors upon it that know you from not you. They know their own soldiers.
Mhm.
And so you walk outside and there's invaders coming at you, and your body knows because God made a way. So I just think it's incredible how valuable the skin is. I didn't know that it was second to the gut. So that's amazing. That's a huge organ. So
Mhm.
sorry, continue.
Oh, no, not at all. Not only second to the gut, but every area of your body, every square inch has a different microbe community. So we think about 40 species. I think that's a very reserved amount. I know it's way more, but the community on your face is different from the community on a body part that's completely covered from the elements that face the outside. From your underarms to your groin area to your legs to your back, the community is all different. And even though there's that many different species, how the communication goes on so effortlessly is just beyond me. And we are definitely reminded every single day, not only in what we see, but just in who we are as a human being, that there is such an amazing creator, and the fact of how DNA is wired and DNA, expresses itself. And you mentioned that my business name, Epigenetic Health, and how, you said you're so right. People always say, you're your DNA. And your friend Judy would always say, no, you're your expression of the DNA. And that is exactly right. I focus very much on epigenetics and DNA in my practice. And so when I get a new client, DNA is always the first thing that I assess and that I run full genetic sequencing, because it at least lets me know how the person is made up. Um, I work a lot with acne, right? And with just different things that the skin can suffer, whether it's psoriasis, whether it's severe forms of atopic dermatitis, whether it's the kind of acne that kind of leaves the divots and craters um, in somebody's skin. And what nobody is talking about, any kind of dermatologist will just throw any antibiotic at you. And you do get better immediately for a short time, and then you stop getting better. But nobody's talking about, well, what about if the blood work is showing parasitic dysbiosis, right? Internal parasitic dysbiosis, internal fungi or yeast or bacterial dysbiosis. What if you have, multiple infections at one time? A lot of the people that you see struggling the worst with acne, they're the ones that I see the most with electronic devices. They've got the AirPods, they've got the Apple Watches, and those kind of radiation frequencies. Not many people are talking about the fact that they make parasites reproduce at an exponential rate. They make fungal microbes, bacterial microbes, overproduce at an exponential rate because these microbes are defending themselves against those non-native EMFs. And so when I see people saying, I went to my dermatologist today and they gave me this thing to, help with this severe acne, and I see them with the AirPods, I see them with the Apple Watches and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, did they also tell them that, maybe they should take it easy on those electronic devices? Or is anybody running blood work and addressing a parasitic overgrowth issue or a bacterial or fungal or yeast overgrowth dysbiosis issue that is definitely going to be there? Um, but I think I would agree with you when I say that I don't see many practitioners functionally assessing blood work. It's rare for me to even see people running comprehensive blood work where they just run simple panels here and there. And it's like, that's not going to help you. That's not a full picture, and then they don't know what the person's genetics are like. Do they have a problem methylating? Do they have a problem with sulfation? Because when the body can't do those processes the right way, guess what it does? It will take sulfur compounds out of the cell membrane. And at the root of everything, the root of health, the root of immunity, the root of beautiful skin integrity is cellular health. So we have people with very damaged cellular walls. Their cells are not even set up the way that they should be. And for that, we're going to need things like super healthy fats. Um, you need a really healthy cholesterol level and production going on in the body to have a healthy skin cell. And it's just things that, people are not really talking about today. And so I think I've just made it a goal of mine, and the Lord has just lit that fire to address things at a cellular level, not just take care of symptoms that are going on, but actually investigate and take a look at what's going on at the cellular level with all these issues that are present today.
Yeah. And skin really is an inside out job, right? It's, people will comment like, what do you put on your skin? And I'm like, extra virgin organic olive oil.
Right.
That's what I use. Like, I'm cheap. I'm not going to go and buy some stuff. Um, I make my own face spray out of like aloe and rose-based non-alcoholic witch hazel. And actually I use like a kombucha-based ones and a couple other things that I'll like spray on my skin. If I use any foundation, it's always, from clean as possible in this country sources. Now it's not perfect. And so my questions to you, before we get to the inside, tell me, in our country, and I've known this because I've done things in the past on lectures, but I want to hear from you as the expert. There's a lot of noise out there in the skincare community. And so let's just talk about women, right? I've mentioned here this too, because it's all the same junk. But tell me the difference between products here in the United States and other countries. What should we look for when we're getting moisturizers or, toners or even foundation and everything? Because, as far as I'm concerned, everything's polluted, but I don't know the words that if I turn the bottle around, what am I looking for that's going to be better and cleaner? So give us a little insight on that.
So those are amazing questions. And I know what you're hinting at are the European standards, because that's basically a huge part of the noise that's in the skincare community right now in this holistic realm. EU standards are quite amazing because this is also a reserve number, but it's estimated that over 2,000 ingredients are on the banned list regarding European standards, right? So the US has only banned between 30 and 40 ingredients. Now that's a stark difference. Um, the concern here in the US is that cosmetics is overseen by the FDA. Well, they regulate food and they regulate cosmetics and medical products. So product approval prior to hitting the market here in the US isn't required unless that product has an ingredient that is officially classified as an FDA drug. Okay. Other than that, they don't care about knowing anything. Now, when we talk about requirements, it's basically saying the US has a reactive approach to the cosmetic ingredient regulation system. They only ban things when enough scientific evidence has been accumulated to deem it necessary to ban it. Okay. The European standards, they take a proactive approach on banning ingredients. Maybe not every ingredient on that ban list has been proven to be harmful, but they are banned until they can be proven to be absolutely safe. Now, that's something reputable to stand by. That's absolutely amazing. And I wish we had those standards here. So, the United States, we have no specific regulations or notification requirements for cosmetics using nanomaterials. That's also another humongous conversation going on in this holistic beauty realm. The US has no standards regarding that. We know nanomaterials and nanoparticles to be quite harmful, but that's not a requirement here. If you go to the European standards, absolutely no skincare products can contain nanomaterials. And if something contains nanomaterials, they've explicitly have to be notified to the European Commission, and then they move forward with regulations from there. In Europe, the cosmetic product safety report is mandatory before a product goes to market. And when you're thinking of all these things and putting this all together, the average person puts on 9 products on their skin daily with over 126 or more very damaging ingredients. And when I talk about damaging ingredients, these things are phthalates, they're parabens, they're fragrances. Fragrances is a pet peeve of mine because it takes over 3,000 chemicals just to make a fragrance, and the label in America only has to say fragrance. Or another word for fragrance is parfum, right? They don't have to tell you the 3,000 chemicals they use to make that fragrance. They don't have to say a lick about it. Here in the United States, companies like that are protected, and those are classified as quote unquote trade secrets. That means
Wow.
they don't have to tell you what those 3,000 chemicals are, just in case you try to replicate it yourself, which I think is silly because that would be like saying, well, then a product doesn't have to have label ingredients just in case somebody might try to copy my formula and make the same product. That's silly. Um, I've been formulating skincare for about 15 to 16 years now, and I can look at a label and kind of reverse formulate it just because I know what percentages are for certain ingredients. But I doubt that I would ever reformulate a perfect product that's not mine. It will be different in some way. And an ingredient list doesn't give me the percentages of what of everything is all in there. So, I think that's kind of silly. But yeah, I mean, that's basically, how it is. We're basically there's there was this cosmetic book, I think the title was Drop Dead Gorgeous, and it was, an amazing book on all these kind of dangerous ingredients that are on cosmetics or skincare products that men and women and children are using daily. And that title couldn't have been more accurate.
Is
So
that a great title?
yeah.
So this is amazing. The 3,000 chemicals in the fragrances. That's new. So things like xenoestrogens, phthalates, parabens, and then you mentioned these nanomaterials. What are nanomaterials?
So nanomaterials are basically, for example, I can bring up an example of sunscreen, right? The very main active ingredient would be something like zinc, and zinc can be manufactured to be nano size. That means nano size, it will actually get into your pores and into your bloodstream. And something of nanoparticle size of that nature, they're so tiny their strength is like a steel beam. So when you have those things circulating in your blood, that should not register as anything as safe in anyone's mind. So another very active ingredient in
Wow.
sunscreen, for example, these are just the two main things that are coming to mind because these are the two main nanoparticles that you see in the industry, and they would be in sunscreen. And nano zinc and nano titanium oxide. Those are two things that can be produced in a nano size, and then they get into your pores because they're so super duper small. They end up getting into your bloodstream. I particularly use non-nano ingredients like that, whether it's if I'm making my own sunscreen for my family, I would make sure that I get non-nano zinc because I want it to lay over my skin like shingles on a roof. I don't want it to get into my bloodstream. So I want to keep it out of there. So basically, the danger of nanoparticles is that they've been made and processed to be so extremely tiny that once they're in the bloodstream circulating at that rate, their strength is like just having tons of little steel beams floating around in the skin. And it just is very, very difficult. Um, and so hopefully that answers that with nanoparticles, but they're not
Amazing.
regulated here, and they should be.
Wow. I didn't know that either. So see all the things we're learning from you today. This is so here is my I guess we could say final question. When you have a client comes in and let's just talk about skin issues in general. One of the things that I think we're lost in the natural health field is now there's skincare products all over the place, but they're not always true. They're not always clean. They're not always quality. Give me like an assessment of, okay, I come in and I have a massive skin rash or something's going on. I have eczema. Give me the inside out approach of how you would help that person. And then maybe share some resources that our audience could find better skincare products like yours. That would be a great resource to share. And I've used
Mhm.
EWE.org, right? Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. Do you still abide by them? Do you still think they're authentic?
Okay, so before my answer slipped my mind, I'm gonna touch on the EWG
Okay.
ratings. 15 years ago, when I didn't know any better, I would kind of use them as a sort of a reference. But for quite some time now, they've become very much a pay to play kind of ordeal, meaning that when I say that, that means that I, as a business, as a skincare business, I could pay to have much better ratings should I have, somewhat undesirable ingredients. Now, is that ethical? Absolutely not. Are companies doing it? Absolutely. You can type in Tide into the EWG database and it will come in at a pretty decent rating. We all know Tide is very toxic. That's not what I would use to wash my clothing. Um, so before I knew better, and there weren't very many options, 15 years ago, you would kind of use a database like that as a backup, as like something to refer to, and just to look things up. Well, now today, we have amazing things. There's a woman that I met socially on Instagram, and her name is Andrea. She has created this Switch Natural app. You can find it on the App Store. I do not know its um how do you say? I don't know its development right now for Android, where that is. I know that she's working on that, but as of right now, and as of quite a bit of time now, it has been running effortlessly on iOS for quite some time. So I purchased that app. It's like a one-time purchase. It's $20. And when I forget, because being a mother with 5 kids, for example, if we go away on vacation and inevitably somebody forgot to pack our charcoal tooth powder and our sunscreen that I've made that's completely organic with non-nano ingredients in it. So I can just pull up that app and I can scan something and I can be confident that it's not pay to play because there's no money accepted by this company from this woman. There's actually literature linked to why the ingredients are dangerous. So when you scan a product, you can then come back with the list. It will either scan clean or it will scan with harmful ingredients, harmful formula in there, and you can click on each ingredient and go to the PubMed literature and be shown why it's dangerous. So as far as that goes,
Yeah,
regarding
great.
EWG, I used to use it as kind of like a reference point, but when you know better, you do better. So once I found out about this app, it has been a lifesaver for me as a mom to 5. If we're traveling out of state or going anywhere and we're at an Airbnb and we need like dish soap and whatever, I can make sure I scan some because I have been bamboozled more times in my life than I care to admit. Looking at a really nicely made, green looking recycled label, making me think that the product is totally clean when
Right.
it's actually not. And so as far as that goes, that's where I always encourage people get this app because it's going to be such a lifesaver. You go to Whole Foods and you're like, oh my gosh, here's a new product, is it clean? And instead of you trying to Google things one by one, just literally take a picture of the item, put it in the app, and it'll tell you whether it's clean or not. Now,
What was
if
the
you,
app again for our listeners?
it's called Switch Natural. So
We'll
it's called
make
the
sure
Switch Natural app.
thank
Yeah.
you.
So now to your question, with you as the client, and if you were to come in and you were struggling with a lot of, acne, how would I proceed? Number one, since I focus so heavily on DNA and epigenetics, we would do genetic sequencing, and then I would run like metabolic tests to see what's going on, complete full comprehensive blood work. I need to assess whether there's, some parasites that are out of control, bacterial infections, fungal infections. And, we get those, from like the comprehensive metabolic panel and your renal system. And how are all of your organ systems doing? I think it's a disservice when some practitioners run partial labs and the client doesn't get a complete picture. I'm not going to run a comprehensive metabolic panel, but then not know how your cardiac area is looking. Is your heart under stress? Um,
You
oh,
okay?
we got kind of paused there for a minute.
Mhm.
Is your thyroid doing okay? And your hormones, what are they doing? Because that gives us a really good baseline to figure out things that are out of control. And based on what the person tells me, you and I both know, like when you look at labs, you need to functionally assess it. We don't go by the typical lab ranges because they're just ridiculous and they keep getting more and more bogus each year. But based on what labs show me and what you tell me as a person, whatever your struggles are in your life, what your environment is like, are you under a lot of stress? Are you around a lot of non-native um, radio frequencies? Do you love a lot of, electronics and stuff like that? I'm going to ask you, do you have any root canals in your mouth? Do you have any mercury silver fillings in your mouth? Because that contributes to a lot of hidden toxicity in the body. I can't tell you how many times I have facilitated patients getting root canals removed, and I get those teeth tested, and they come back with such an overload of parasites being found in there. All of these bacterial and fungal strains that are implicated in heart stress and heart attacks, and it's like nobody else would have thought to look in that area, but really, health is so comprehensive and it is all encompassing. Your skin doesn't look bad by itself. Your skin didn't decide to look bad because it felt like it. Your skin is expressing that because whatever is going on in your microbiome. So there's possibly this really ugly feedback loop, between your gut, your skin, and your brain. And, we know that psychology determines physiology. You can guarantee that by people who struggle with IBS, and they have an event that is just really mentally affecting them with stress and anxiety, that their body carries it out. And so all of this has so much to do with everything. And that's basically how I assess every client. I try to really get as complete of a picture as I can. I love taking stool samples because it actually lets me know the microbial community that you have inside. Also, were you a child who lived on antibiotics? Were you an adult who lived on antibiotics all the time? I know that I came from a very young single mother who just turned 18 when I was born. And I was a child that lived on antibiotics because she didn't know any better. She just did what everybody told her. If Ivy had a headache, oh, Maria, take her to the doctor. She's going to need antibiotics. If Ivy had a stomach ache, oh, Maria, she needs an antibiotic. So I had those chronic cycles of constant antibiotics, and I've had to try to repair as much as my body will allow me to repair. And I'm in a really great place right now, but it takes a long time to get there. Um, the skin is beautiful and it's very resilient. And once you can identify some problems and you get on a really good protocol, the skin will show you results pretty rapidly. It's very rare that I don't see a client show results pretty rapidly. The body wants to do what it's supposed to do for you. It wants to function the way that it's supposed to. And when you give it the fuel to do that, you would be blown away, at how quickly things turn around. I'm not saying they're going to be overnight, but they turn around pretty quickly.
Well, I'll just give everyone a little small fact. The skin industry, right, for taking care of dermatology, issues of the skin is a $75 billion industry. 75 billion just to take care of issues that are already present. So what if we actually prevented them by doing exactly what you're saying, right? Change the foundations of your nutrition, your hydration, your movement, your sleep, elimination, emotional, spiritual wellness, change the communication, put in the right supplementation, and then topically using products that actually facilitate good communication between your skin and your microbiome and all of the other factors. One of the things that I was talking about today in my group is the immune system. There's no fence in the body for the immune system. It's not like it's like, oh, don't go to liver. Hey, don't go over here. When your immune system is activated, it's activated. And that is innate and adaptive. And the immune system has 4 communication pathways: paracrine, autocrine, endocrine, and also neurotransmitters. So brain, hormones, blood, lymphatic, cardiovascular, every organ system and function is touched by the immune system, which I always tell people, if you have something on your skin, it has tried every other way to resolve itself, and it's got to come out somewhere. So I love hearing that you get results because with an industry that, I mean, good gravy, we demonize the sun. Now, I'm not a fan of gluttonizing the sun, but it's not the cause of your skin cancer. It is a contributor when you have high oxidative stress, when you have chemicals on your skin that can, with heat, create breakdown. So I think we all need to pay attention a little bit more to our skin, and the signs and symptoms that it's giving us. Because two things will bring people into my office, right? Number one, if they can't stop going to the bathroom. And number two, if something ends up on their face. Like, they'll be like, they're in my office so quick, like, what's this on my face? Like, I don't know. Let's find out. But I love your approach because it's not a topical approach, it's a complete comprehensive approach, going back to the genetics, the DNA, the epigenetics, the health of the gut, the health of the body, the elimination pathways, your ability to absorb nutrition and beyond. So I love it.
I definitely agree with you with your sun comment. I think it's become a pet peeve of mine, with hearing that noise in this holistic realm or even outside of this holistic realm alike. The sun gives you all these diseases and it causes cancer. If that would be true, they forgot to tell the people who live in Africa and the natives there who actually slather themselves in their shea butter and cook and eat what they hunt and grow. I don't see exploding skin cancers over there, but here in the US, we're slathering ourselves with all these chemicals that quote unquote are supposed to protect you from the sun, when actually they turn very dangerous as they're heated by the sun. People are living off of eating things cooked with seed oils that are put at such high temperatures that they denature the molecules in that seed oil. It becomes absolutely toxic and rancid. Nobody has an antioxidant level uh,
Right.
worthy enough to keep you from getting scorched from the sun. And it's actually not the sun. Get off of seed oils. Use organic skincare. There's so many healthy ingredients for the skin that are provided by fats and oils. And fats and oils come in two different forms. They come in the shapes of butters, mango butter, shea butter, kokum butter, and they come in liquid forms, oils like sunflower seed oil, raspberry oil, coconut oil. All of these things are loaded with fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. All of these ingredients have a amazing fatty acid profile that just protects the skin. It's friendly to the microbiome. It doesn't strip you. So every time I tell somebody, every time you bathe, your skin has to reassess itself. Your body, your skin all over yourself has to kind of come back to a homeostasis all over again. Taking showers isn't horrible, especially in the summertime. What you don't want to be is you don't want to be coated with sweat. You don't want that sweat to dry on you like a layer, because then that will cause irritation and can possibly get you into an acne flare up. But nobody needs to be taking 3 showers a day. I think that's obnoxious because every time we do
Oh my
that,
nature. Oh
yeah.
God. No, actually, I think kids are the dirtiest yet the healthiest when they're the
hmm
dirtiest, right?
hmm
So in our time left, few minutes here, can you give the audience just like, three things they should do inside and maybe something that should be part of their daily regimen for their skin outside? So, if you had to give a high level, like here's three foods you should eat or a supplement you should take, and here's some things that you should always nourish your skin with on the outside, what would that be?
So if I had to give those recommendations, my number one for internally caring for the best possible outcome you can have in strengthening your skin integrity would be you better fall in love with animal proteins and animal fats. Um, Animal foods are the only group of foods that give you what's needed for a proper sulfation process. People talk about vitamin D like it's nobody's business. You actually sulfate vitamin D from the sunshine. Once those sun rays hit your eyes, it triggers your brain to start synthesizing all different kinds of analogs of vitamin D. You start producing and synthesizing cholesterol, and it just enriches and enhances your skin so much. That only comes from animal foods and animal fats. People love to argue with me on that, but I'm not here to argue about that. In my home, we're very animal based, high fat, high protein here in my home. It's very important for developing children, for proper hormone development, for proper brain growth. And I know I'm talking about all these other things, but without these things being healthy and being supported, it is almost impossible for you to have a worthy skin integrity. It's just, it doesn't happen any other way. We need sulfur, and that comes from animal foods. There are amazing sulfur-rich vegetables. I love the brassica family. So Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, those are my favorites. So if you want from the inside out, you need to start enjoying really healthy animal foods and animal fats. Um, Definitely antioxidants and have good hydration. I'm not a fan of telling people drink a gallon of water. That's absolutely obnoxious. It is so obnoxious, and I'm so glad that you agree with me. But when I tell people, who told you to drink a gallon of water? If you look back in time, the only time the government ever recommended that you start drinking a certain amount of water was when they started treating the water with chlorine and fluoride. All of a sudden, we had water recommendations. We need to
Yeah.
drink this much, water per day. And I thought that that was very interesting. And I would say not just any water, fresh, filtered, actually mineral rich water. We have a under sink unit in our kitchen. And it is an amazing filter, but it also structures our water. And it's one of the most amazing things. That's a whole nother podcast, but people learning about what structured water is.
Yeah.
Everything that your body floats around in your body internally, all of that fluid, it is structured water floating around the cells, around the organs. That's structured water. So you want water that's actually going to hydrate you and be beneficial. Your environment, you probably wouldn't want to be in an environment, in secondhand smoke all the time or any kind of things that are damaging not only to your lungs, but that's also damaging to your skin. That'll age you rapidly like nobody's business. You want to, talk about the conversation of mold. Do you have mold in your home that you're not addressing? That is another thing that will age you like nobody's business. Be in a mold infested place. If you can't get out of a mold infested place, I have people ask me all the time, Dr. Ivy, what do I do? That's a very hard question. Something like an air purifier, like an air doctor, or
Or an
another brand
ozone.
that, yeah, another brand that I love, Air Doctor and Allen, I believe. That is going to help you some, but to the person that's struggling, we've really got to figure out some kind of way to get you out of that environment. Because as you know, it's hard for a practitioner to work with someone that's still in the area of where the assault and the toxicity is coming in. It's almost impossible. It's like trying to bucket water out of a sinking boat. Um, so that makes it really hard. And then if you want to take care of your skin from the outside, definitely use clean organic skincare. Our skincare line is called Adonai Skincare. I'm not going to be one of those ones to say that my skincare is absolutely the best. There is room for everybody. And just like we need sound naturopathic doctors, we need sound organic, super clean skincare businesses. So, um, you can go to Adonai Skincare online. It's just simply adonaisoap.com. But I am the formulator and the manufacturer of all our skincare products. I actually launched two new products last year, and I was pretty pumped about that. The one is my Skin Biome body lotion, and I absolutely love it. It's actually preserved with lactobacillus fermentation that actually prevents any kind of foreign invader kind of like contaminating the product or growing any kind of bacterial or mold species, that would be something you need to look out for in skincare. So even if you don't buy mine, stay away from things that contain denatured alcohols, that contain phthalates and parabens and fragrances. Stay away from things that have formaldehyde releasers as preservatives. Okay. Formaldehyde is used to embalm bodies to basically almost make you last indefinitely, but it's really just to give them enough time for the funeral to take place. You don't want formaldehyde in your products. I mean, it's absolutely detrimental to the skin barrier. You can take that to the bank every day. If you continue to use and buy products that have formaldehyde donors as a preservative, you're going to have a really hard time getting that beautiful look to your skin, the integrity, the feel to your skin, the plumpness to your cells. Those things are not going to help you. If you're a woman, definitely be cautious about your makeup. That Switch Natural app also scans makeup. So it will scan makeup for you, it will scan detergents for you, and it will scan skincare for you. Okay. That is amazing. I don't know of an app that will do that all in one encompassing app. So take care of your makeup. Make sure that it's not loaded with heavy metals, that it doesn't have those nanoparticles like nano titanium oxide, that are very harmful for the human body. Um, and just, basically that. I'm trying to think of what else.
No,
Healthy
I
diet.
think that's a great list.
Yeah.
But well, it's definitely a start. And even if you can't do all those things, one or two of them, just starting, I always tell people like, break habits one at a time,
Oh,
not
absolutely. None
so.
of this can happen overnight. And I always work with clients to start switching at one thing out like every month or every other month, usually bi-monthly. If we're working on diet, we will start switching out the meat first because it's probably the most important, the meat and animal products. So we'll start with like meat and eggs and milk, and we'll switch those things out to grass-fed and raw options, if possible, where they're located at. At this point where we are in this realm, this holistic realm, you have so many US ranches out west that will ship within the United States. You almost don't have a reason to not be in with clean meats anymore.
Mm.
It's okay with raw milk. It's a little bit harder depending on where you're located, but even the raw milk also is growing, within the United States. Um, so yeah, definitely. This doesn't happen overnight. You need to take it as you can do it so that you don't get discouraged. Don't tell yourself you got to switch this stuff all overnight because you're going to want to give up. It's going to be overwhelming. So just tackle like one area of your life every 3 months and focus on that area for those 3 or however many months you can. Focus on one thing at a time and you will definitely get there.
Well, that's amazing. And just so everyone's aware, Dr. Ivy is accepting new clients. So you can visit her on her website. I will make sure that I have the link to her site, the link to your skincare line. I'll even put the app, the Switch Natural app in there and everything else we talked about. So Dr. Ivy, thank you so much for being here. This was enlightening for sure. And I'm getting the app right now, I have to say, because I need to know. And especially if people are struggling, with any type of issue, it doesn't have to be skin. She's an
Mhm.
incredible practitioner. Please visit her site, find out more about all the things that she does. And do you want to leave us with any parting words?
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. It was a ball, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to bring you back on structured water for sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much. God bless you, keep you, and may his face shine upon you. And we will see you next time.